Hello again, lovely people. This week I'm doing a video which I saw on Jen Campbell's channel, which is a fantastic channel, and if you're not already familiar with her, I heartily recommend you go and subscribe. It's the 10 longest books on my TBR list.
Sophie Vlogs.
I just found this interesting watching Jen's video. I think we're vaguely similar insofar as I don't read a lot of hugely long books. I don't discount books if they're long, I just don't seem to buy too many long ones. So yes, the books I'm talking about might not be super long compared to other people's versions of these videos, but for me they are quite long. A couple of them are books that I've previously hauled and stuff, so I'll talk mostly about ones that I haven't talked about yet on this channel before. So, to start with, we have Caesar by Adrian Goldsworthy. This book was lent to me by my dad. It's essentially a biography about Caesar. I studied classical studies at uni, and I primarily ended up looking at Greek stuff, but I did do a bit of Roman stuff, and we looked at primarily Augustus, so I borrowed it because I thought, oh, it'd be quite good to learn a bit more about Julius. Biographies and autobiographies are not a genre that I've read a massive amount of. I've been reading more of them this year as part of my let's read more non-fiction drive. So I've just always bypassed this. I've never gone to pick it up and read it. Partially because of the length, partially because it's history and I feel like I always need to take these books slower to make sure I'm really taking it in. But I do fully intend on reading it at some point. It's just not quite there yet. This clocks in, if you take out all the extra stuff, at about 630 pages, which for me is a fairly lengthy book. Following on from that, we have Sepulcher by Kate Moss. Growing great with the pronunciation here. I like Kate Moss. I read Labyrinth by her. I read, she did a wintry short story collection that I read. I think I've maybe read another one of hers, but I can't remember. She tends to do ones that are sort of historical. They tell some sort of, you get a bit of historical knowledge from them, and there tends to be maybe two plot lines. So you have your primary person who's in a more modern time, and then you have someone who is in an older time, and as the primary person learns about the older person, you learn about history and stuff like that. They're good, I like them, they're enjoyable. This comes in at around 750 pages. I do intend to read it soon, I've just been busy. Following on from that is The Idiot by Dostoevsky. This is about 700 and something pages. I've talked about this in my birthday haul because I got it for my birthday. I know very little about it. This is one of the books that I'm really intending on reading in 2017. I do want to prioritize it and push it up my list. I always tend to, I think because I set myself Goodreads reading challenges, and I like to do it because I like to just keep track of what I'm reading, that sort of thing, but I think sometimes it sort of stilts what I'm reading, because this, as a longer book, I'd be maybe a bit hesitant to dive in, because I'd be oh, it's going to take me a while to read, but I need to remember that it's not about quantity, it's about quality. I don't know if these next choices are cheating slightly, because they are sort of more than one book in one, but I have The Penguin Complete Sherlock Holmes, which obviously has multiple of Sherlock Holmes stories in it. But it's 1,000 or something pages. I probably won't be reading this all in one go. I think I'm probably going to do story by story. But I thought I'd include it because I don't have that many large books. And then, as well as that, I also have The Lord of the Rings, which I tried to read when I was quite young, and I think I was too young to really get into it. I think I got halfway through Two Towers before I admitted defeat. I was probably about 10 or something. But it's a classic, it's iconic. I really feel like it's something I need to read. Stripcover Lit recently did sort of a read-through of Lord of the Rings, and from reading the comments there was a mixed bag of people who've read it and loved it, and people who are reading it for the first time and will find it quite difficult. And I think that fear of finding it difficult and not enjoying it is what's kept me from really diving into it, because it is such a classic. I love the films, I've read The Hobbit many times. I think there's that tiny fear of what if I don't enjoy it, which I think is something I'm just going to have to get over, just dive in, have a go. But this is my dad's edition as well, which is why it's falling apart ever so slightly and sellotaped together. But it's a lovely edition, I really like the cover, I think it's really lovely, so I would like to maybe prioritise this in 2017 perhaps. Following on from that, we have a book that was lent to me by my mum, which is Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. This is one of those books which I hear people talk about a lot, that seems to be like a seminal text that people rave about. My mum said that she really enjoyed it, but at times she felt like maybe it went on a little bit, like it repeated itself slightly. As you can see by this little bookmark here, I previously decided I was going to read it, and then I think I just forgot all about it. So I need to pick this back up, I need to get back into it. It clocks in at about 500 pages or so in comparison to some of the others it's not actually that big. But because it's non-fiction as well, I think just takes me a bit longer to get through them, so I tend to like intersperse them with a lot of like lighter stuff just to make reading enjoyable, not a chore. But yeah, it's all about, as the subheading says, contacting the power of the wild woman. So I don't really know much more than that, but I'm gonna just read it, see what I think, form some opinions, that sort of thing. The next two books are ones that I've previously mentioned on this channel before, so I won't talk about them in too much detail, but it's The Fairy Queen by Edmund Spenser, which chocks in at 800 pages or so. This is something which I had previously started reading at university, left university, finally picked up my own copy, do intend on really diving back into, but I want to read this aloud to myself, so I feel like it's going to be quite an undertaking to do, so I'm just sort of like waiting till I'm at a point where I feel like I really want to go forth with that mission. Next up is Ivanhoe, a romance. Depending on the order I'm posting videos, I may have posted my haul where I talk about this, I may not have, but I will talk about it in more detail there. It's beautiful. It's actually only about 500 pages or so, but it is quite chunky and sizable, so at some point I am fully intending on diving into this. The final two books are ones that are maybe not actually that long, but they're quite big, so that's been stopping me from reading them, I think. So we have The Art of Dress, Clothes and Society, 1500s to 1914 by Jane Ashleford. It has National Trust at the top because I bought it at a National Trust house ages ago. I've dipped into it from time to time. It just is like a fashion history, you know, you've got lots of pictures of various things, and it's just an analysis of the art of dress, clothes and society. I find fashion really interesting. I love fashion. I maybe am not the most fashionable human to other people, but I like following like fashion on runways and stuff like that. I find that really interesting. I particularly like how you can sort of read history into the evolution of fashion. I think people dismiss fashion as frivolous a lot, where in actuality, if you look back and you look at trends that developed, there's usually some sort of like social reason why. You know, like obvious things are, for example, in wartime skirts got a bit shorter because fashion fabric is being rationed. And then in the 50s you have a return to a more ladylike silhouette because you're trying, well, like society is trying to like encourage women to like go back to being like feminine housewives and stuff like that. So they bring back this like feminine silhouette and all of these things that you could just dismiss as being like, oh, and then they made skirts look like this. It's like there's a lot of social and historical reasons why that happened. So this should be pretty interesting when I get round to it. The final book is just super gorgeous, and it's The Party Dress, A History of Fashionable Occasions. It's a little bit battered because it has been used a bit when I did Textiles A-Level. I did lend it round a little bit. But it's essentially a history of the party dress and of notable party dresses. It's something which I've dipped into every now and then, but I've never just actually sat down and read the whole thing cover to cover, which is a failing on my part because it's gorgeous. If I open it on some random pages, you'll see just the sheer beautifulness of the photographs, and it's just gorgeous, and I've just failed as a human by not reading it fully yet. That mostly has to do with the fact that it's just quite hefty. I do a lot of my reading whilst travelling, whilst going to work, that sort of thing, so just if something is not super easy to carry around, then it just takes me ages to read. I just thought this was a cool little video idea to explore books which have been on my to-read pile for ages, but I've just never got round to because they are quite hefty. Watching Jen's video made me have like a little resolution to myself that actually I would try and actually read some of these, because I'm always put off by the size and I always end up going for something else. And in actuality, like, I'm sure these books are absolutely fantastic and I just need to like take that plunge. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. If there are any long books that have been in your to-read pile for forever, please tell me about them and then we can just like bond over how we need to read them. I hope all is well with you and I will see you next time.